You're listening to the Nonprofit State of Minds podcast, an Angel Oak creative production.
Hey everybody, David Chatham with Angel Oak Creative. Welcome to our latest episode of our podcast, Nonprofit State of Minds. I kind of like to think about it like we're picking the brains of nonprofit leaders about what's happening in the sector, how we could all do better, maybe some challenges we're trying to overcome. This is our third season. We've had some really great guests this season, and this episode is no exception. Today we have Johnathan Brabson, who is Referral Partnerships Manager at Climb. Welcome, Johnathan.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Johnathan and I met back at a United Way Charlotte event, if I remember
Yep.
correctly.
Yep.
And we were both on a panel, if I call, is that right? Am I
It was,
remembering?
yeah, yep, yep, yep. We were paying. It was so long ago.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
know. It
remember
feels
those
like
things.
like a decade ago, but it was probably like 6 months. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, John and I were on a panel there talking about digital technology and just felt like we had some really good synergies going on. And since then, we've Angel Oak. We've been talking to Climb about looking at some potential services they provide, and we just thought it might be interesting to have a conversation about nonprofits, about technology, about digital strategy, all of those things. So we'll get into that. But first, Johnathan, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be part of this nonprofit sector?
Yeah, so probably not the most traditional way of how I got here. So grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, go Vols. And after I graduated college, I played soccer all my life. I got into soccer. And so for the past 25 years, I was a collegiate women's soccer coach at various institutions in and around Charlotte.
Wow.
And yeah, you weren't expecting that one, right?
No.
And so I decided to get out. Kids were getting older, a variety of things, nothing bad, and ended up taking a job at a company before this, and just sort of found Climb, did a little bit of work for them to help place some individuals, and they asked me to come on board. And I'll never forget the conversation was, well, talking to the CEO, he's like, "Hey, you ever considered, coming here to work?" I said, "Man, I don't know what you do." What is digital compliance? Like, what are you talking about? And fast forward 2 years later, and my world has been open, and especially with my role with the Climb for Good program. I'm just excited to be a part to help really nonprofits, chambers, associations, really mission-driven organizations to be better stewards in the digital space.
No, that's great. Well, tell us what is Climb? What does Climb do? What services, what products, what kind of things do you offer?
Yeah, well, Climb very simply, we are an all-in-one digital compliance solution. That sounds fancy, but to break it down to layman's terms, we are a widget that goes onto websites that provides a variety of services within that widget. The first service that we do is we help to provide the necessary consumer data privacy laws and various global regulations. So, long story short, with that, whenever you've gone to a website, you a lot of times will see at the bottom this pop-up that says, accept all, decline all, different
Right.
different sort of ways it's presented. That's one part of what we do. Very specific to jurisdiction settings. So each state essentially has different laws around that. But also what we do is we help provide an accessibility feature for your website.
Yeah.
Something that a lot of people don't realize is that your website is a place of public accommodation, which means that you need to think about accessibility for that. And I know we'll get into that more, but that's another part of what
Yeah.
we handle. We also provide the necessary privacy policies, so certain policies that are aligned with websites as well. So there's a lot that we provide, but it's much simpler than it sounds.
And it's my guess is it's probably not something that's a top priority for nonprofits, right? At least it's not on their radar as much as like fundraising or, program delivery or any of that. So my guess is they don't know they have a problem maybe until they even talk to you.
No, you talked about not even a top priority. I don't even think it's within the stratosphere. Yeah, no, not a lot of people realize that it is a problem. Because oftentimes with many just let's just take all institutions, they focus on bringing in money, and they focus on viewing it through their lens.
Yeah,
We're sight able to some degree. I wear contacts, but still, I'm sight able. And so I don't think about, when I started the show, I didn't think about individuals who visit websites that have vision impairment issues. What
right.
challenges do they have? We all think about going to buildings that, see somebody in a wheelchair, and there's a ramp, there's an elevator, there's railings, but a lot of nonprofits, especially, they forget about the digital accessibility space. And so
Yeah,
I hope just to give you information. That's it.
yeah. So give us kind of the overview of the elements of what nonprofits should be thinking about when they're thinking about compliance and accessibility and all. What are the key elements of that,
Yeah. So
strategy, that approach that you encourage people to think about?
Well, the first thing I think is about transparency, trust, and inclusiveness. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing right there. What I've noticed with nonprofits, I think inclusiveness is pretty typical on most people's radar. Nonprofits, they each have a mission-driven focus to include those individuals, but unintentionally they're excluding a whole nother population.
Mm,
25% of Americans live with some sort of a disability that could cause a challenge to viewing a website.
yeah.
Not a lot of people knew that. As far as transparency, just being completely upfront with regards to what your website is gathering. All websites
Mm,
gather your personal identifiable information, and that
yeah.
sounds like a big scary thing. It's not. By being transparent, here's what we gather. Most nonprofits don't sell or share that, but the common person visiting isn't aware of that. So to be
Right.
able to be completely transparent and trustworthy to say, hey, do you opt in or opt out? So that you know that when you click that opt out button, that your information is safe, it's not being resold or reshared or repurposed, especially for donors. I think
Yeah.
that's something big, David. I had a conversation yesterday with a nonprofit that they loved about what we're providing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I think especially today, we're facing so many different scams and attempts to get data. And you know even recently I heard about the I think it's 23andMe, the data, the DNA
Yeah.
company, right? and
Mhm.
and they were getting some heat about, they had promised not to share any of the data, and now that they're going bankrupt they're trying to sell it, right? So just understanding what are my rights, what are my responsibilities, as a nonprofit. Um, you know, let's talk a little bit about that. Just, that little pop-up, that cookie pop-up, right? I
Mhm.
guess is one way to think about it. You can
Yeah.
correct me if I'm describing it
Mhm.
incorrectly, but um, it seems like such a simple thing, but
Mhm.
yet there's some importance to it, right? I mean, there's some
Mhm.
legal aspects to it, and then there's, to your point, there's kind of the ethical or the moral side of it, of wanting to be, because nonprofits, part of their being a nonprofit, being a 501(c)(3), is that they have to be transparent with a lot of information, right?
Mhm.
Financial information, maybe some donor information, salaries. The transparency part is really inherent in a
Mhm.
nonprofit, um, you know, just existing. So,
Mhm.
what role does that transparency play in their decision making, and does it cost a lot of money to be compliant with that kind of transparency?
Yeah, and with regards to transparency, I want to go back a conversation I had yesterday with a nonprofit, and
Yeah,
she said this is really a great solution because now our donors know right up front
yeah,
that we are not going to sell or share their information because they have opted out. And she
yeah.
said they don't do that anyways.
Right.
But just to give that extra layer of protection, that extra layer of trust
Yeah.
that their donors know that, okay, my information is secure. I'm not going to get hit by all these other people. I think that's one layer to it. And as far as the laws around it, they vary. Each
Yeah.
law varies. Each state, it's just like state sales tax, right? You
Yeah.
can't keep up with it until you're into it. And so what Climb has done is Climb has taken that headache out of it. And so we've already embedded into our system the ability to identify your IP address through
Okay.
geofencing and give you the necessary consumer data privacy law.
Okay.
Also, data subject requests as well. We've
Mm,
probably all have gone on and said, delete my data. What information do you have on me? Well, that's part of the consumer data privacy laws is that each state has a specific set of
interesting.
data subjects that you must present to the end user. And so a lot of that is just taking that extra step to make sure that your visitors, your donors, whoever it is, knows that, hey, Angel Oak Creative has my best interest in mind. I can trust these guys.
Yeah. So we've got compliance and then we've got accessibility. Talk a little bit about that accessibility side of things. Why should nonprofits care about that? Why is it important to the sector in general?
To start with, David, it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about stats and we can talk about this, and this, but to me, it's the right thing to do because all nonprofits, they have a mission, whether it's working with the poor, whether it's feeding the hungry, whether it's providing, hey, we can go on and on.
Yeah.
But they unintentionally leave out a sector of individuals who live with disabilities. Like I mentioned,
Yeah.
25% live with disabilities who could make, viewing a website a challenge. Low vision, ADHD, dyslexia. Those are all disabilities. And so imagine if you live with that disability trying to go into a website to get information. So that's one part of it as well. The
Yeah.
other thing is it's a law. It's a law that says that your website must be accessible for anybody that comes to it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the right thing to do, and it's the law. But we can even talk more about the stats. There's money being left on the table for not having an accessible website.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
that.
So right now,
I know
there's
when people hear about money, right, their ears perk up. So I'm guessing some people are maybe leaning a little closer to the speaker right
well,
now.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's this simple. So there's approximately about $500 billion in million, $500 million available in the disabled community in
Mm,
after-tax disposable income.
wow. So $500 million. Yeah.
$500 million. So just out of curiosity, how many of your listeners would appreciate, let's say, 0.00001% of that?
Yeah.
I think they'd be okay with that. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you're going to get that, but by being accessible, now you got a chance at that.
Right.
Um, Nonprofits that have made an investment into the digital accessibility space has
Yeah.
seen about a 15 to 20% in online donations. Now,
Yeah.
these are varied from different sources. The reason why they're able to do that is because now you're able to keep people on your website longer because it's easier for them to view,
Yeah.
and they'll keep coming back. They might not be ready then, but now they're going to remember, Angel Oak, that was easy for me to view their website. Let me go back. Now's the right time. I have more, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Now they can come back with ease. So those are just two quick stats right there that probably
That's
people
great.
might be like, ooh, let me learn more.
So I mean, most of the folks, at least my understanding from our audience is that most of our folks are executive directors or development directors, marketing directors.
Mhm.
Um, what, what's the first step they can take to kind of understand what status they're in right now with compliance, with accessibility? How can they figure that out? Because most of these folks aren't web experts. They're not, I'm not a web expert, right? I mean, I'm not
I'm
going to
not
be
either.
able,
I'm in it.
I know I can't go back, and open my website and know, oh yeah, man, we're compliant, we're accessible. So how can people understand where their technology platforms are in the spectrum of accessibility and compliance?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, hey, let's connect. let's talk about what can you do. I think a lot of times it's with executive directors and marketing directors that the biggest problem I've seen with nonprofits, David, is that there's very few staff members doing corporate staff needs work. So in other words, there's 5 to 10 people, but they need 100 and 150 people. And so
Right.
and so
Yeah.
things have to be prioritized. And so, but I think that it sounds scary when you think about, oh my God, accessible website. I got to do all these sorts of things. And so really just the first step is to have that conversation to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's not a big scary thing. It really isn't that scary. Now, there's a lot of things that can be done to a T, but there's a lot of things that you can do to take a step. Like in less than 30 minutes, you can have a solution that takes steps towards accessibility.
Right.
That's one part of it. But I just say, let's have a conversation. Like, what does this really mean? What does this really look like? Because again, I think sometimes people are scared of how big and cumbersome this could be. Honestly, it really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to start somewhere, right? I mean, if don't get paralyzed by the decision, more so just make that first step and look at what that, as progress, right? Not perfection. So,
And that's something that's I think you said it the best, and I gotta stress that is progress, right? The proverbial Rome wasn't built in a day, and again, like we recognize that the thing that nonprofits struggle with is funding.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's across the board. It's funding, 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 and so to think that you have to do something else with lack of funds is a scary thing. But to
Yeah.
know the purpose of it, to know how you can do it, to know that, there is somebody looking out for your best interests, that's the step.
Yeah. And speaking of money, I mean, is this a huge investment, a moderate investment, a low investment in terms of the outlay of
Yeah,
expenses?
yeah, it's a low investment. It's a very low investment. And, typically it can range from anywhere from probably $45 a month,
Hmm.
upwards of $500 a month. And now the
Right.
ones that are in the $500 a month, those are the ones that are getting, millions of page views a month, and their
Right.
data is just out off the charts, and they just
People
require.
probably wish they could have that, right? I wish I had to pay $500 a month so I had a million page views.
Yeah, yeah, but through our Climb for Good program, we really want to be able to have those conversations with nonprofits so that there's a balance.
Yeah.
Like I said, it starts at $45 a month.
Yeah.
But again, we understand that there's challenges that nonprofits have. And so we just want our goal is to make sure that your mission as a nonprofit is not lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't want money or lack of resources to be a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe we've covered this a little bit already, but maybe just to articulate it more, specifically, why aren't more nonprofits? I don't know if what percentage of nonprofits are, compliant and accessible, or some version of, some combination of those. But, is it the majority or not? Is it the majority are? What's y'all's experience with that?
I believe the last stat I saw, it was about 3% of nonprofit websites are not accessible. And
Wow.
something like 80, what was it, 86% of nonprofit websites have major accessibility issues.
Right.
That's a
Wow.
huge number, you know,
So let me make sure I heard you right. Only 3% are accessible or not?
are
Okay.
accessible,
Okay. So
are
only three.
accessible.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yep.
that's disappointing, right?
Yeah. Well, David, only 95% of all, or not, or only 5% of all websites are considered to be accessible in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and that's and talk a little bit about. I know you and I've had this conversation, just the nuances. You're not guaranteeing compliance, right, with the
Right.
ADA. What's that nuance? Talk about that just a little bit so people understand what that looks like.
Right. So we are a widget, okay? And we can't go into your code and fix your code to make the code accessible. And so what it's called, just kind of really quick backstory, it's called WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Yeah.
And based on that, the government says that here's a set of standards that your website needs to meet to be considered quote unquote compliance. And I put it in quotation marks because there are no hard fast rules, but they're guidelines, right? There's
Yeah.
guidelines in law. They're guidelines. And so with what we do is that we say with the widget that this is a step.
Yeah.
We believe that you're taking a step because to be completely transparent, David, to build an accessible website according to the WCAG AA standards, there is a cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a cost. And so we just like to say that you're showing the right effort. You're taking the necessary steps to finding the money to
Yeah.
do things on the back end, and something that we have created is that now we don't want to just give you a widget on the front end. Climb is about to release a set of developer tools. What these tools do is that they can scan your website. Each line of code, we will evaluate those and let you know if they're accessible or not. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Based on that, we'll give you the remediation to fix it and the
Okay.
why. So we're looking to close that loop, David. We just don't want to say, here's the widget and off you go, because
Right.
we understand what the government asks. And so by providing these accessibility or these developer tools, now we're just making it easier for your developer to go in and fix things.
Yeah. So, give an example, if you would, of an organization. You can use a name or not, but
Yeah.
give an example of an organization that is doing it well, right? That maybe you work with, that you've
Yeah.
seen, invest the time, the money, the effort, and what does that look like? And has it added additional levels of complexity to them? Has it been pretty, seamless and
Mhm.
easy? Just talk about what that experience looks like that a nonprofit might expect.
Yeah, so like I mean, a couple of examples like Peer Voices out in Orange County. What they do is they help to take incarcerated individuals and give them a platform to get back into society to try to change their pattern. Like they have a
Yeah.
pattern of why they were incarcerated, so now they're trying to change the pattern so that they
Okay.
stay out and really be productive citizens. RAIN, they do HIV testing and prevention here in
Uh,
Charlotte. Supportive housing communities. They help find housing for individuals who are homeless, and they have certain standards within that. But with each of those examples right there, the feedback we got was, man, that was easy to install.
right.
And each of these individuals love them to death. It's great. They're like, now you realize I'm not computer savvy. I am
Right.
not tech savvy. I'm like, hey, that's great. What I do is I help walk them through the process. And in really less than 10 minutes, you
Yeah.
can have a step towards accessibility through our widget.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
Yeah. And I mean, part of working towards that compliance is I don't know what the legal language is. But it is demonstrating that you're making a reasonable effort, right?
Right.
That you're trying to accommodate those. And to your point, it's gray, but you know, eh, getting to that level of full compliance, my understanding is it, and even that changes over time too, right? So
Hmm.
it's tens and tens of thousands of dollars for a website extra to be fully built out in a way that meets those AC
WCAG. Yeah.
standards. So not that we shouldn't strive for that, but there there are steps, if I understand correctly, those steps that we're taking early on, like the widget, like the audits, all of those things are demonstrating that organization is making a reasonable effort at accommodation. Am I saying
That
that correctly?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. You're spot on with that. The other thing too is accessibility statements. Those are super, super helpful because, you know, The way I read them and the way I view an accessibility statement is sort of it's an admission of there's things that we just don't know,
Right.
but please help us
Yeah.
to be better. You
Well,
know,
what is that? What is an accessibility statement? What is that?
Yeah, so an accessibility statement essentially says that we're doing our best efforts to work towards WCAG 2.1, 2.2 AA standards, whatever it is that you're trying to say. But we recognize that there's things that we could be missing. If you're incurring challenges with viewing our website, let us know,
Right.
And so for me, that says
That's
a
yeah, I
lot
mean,
to,
I think that's interesting too, right? That
yeah.
you're acknowledging we're not perfect, another,
Mhm.
that another level of transparency, and you're giving them a way to voice their needs and their, of what
Mhm.
they could, or at least maybe how they're not being able to fully gain access to the information that you have, right? Which I think is
That's exactly it,
smart.
David. Yep, that's exactly it. And that's something that we are able to, we provide many different
I like
templates and
that.
forms as far as accessibility statements. So we do provide that
Yeah.
within our solution as well. Obviously, with those, you obviously want to consult with, with an attorney because those
Yeah.
are I don't want to call them legal documents, but they're definitely a document that has some statements in there. But that's just something else that we're able to provide and work towards for the client. Because again, we're none of us are perfect,
Yeah.
but we strive to be better every day. And so that's just again, there's another step to say, hey, let us be better.
Yeah. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what are one or two things that you really want people to hear and take away from this conversation? Nonprofit leaders, what do you want them to either hear or do, or both?
I think the biggest thing is, separate yourself. I think by having a compliance tool helps separate you from the other nonprofits that are out there because now you are showing that you are looking to include more individuals. I think the other thing is that also, what does that say about your brand and about your mission?
Yeah,
By having an accessibility feature and or a compliance feature, that's saying that your brand recognizes transparency and it
yeah,
recognizes accessibility is needed. So there's another separating factor. And the other thing is just take a step.
yeah,
And if that step is reaching out to me just to learn more about this and what are the details of it, hey, that's fine with me because, you know, I feel like my role here of leading the Climb for Good program is to really create awareness
yeah,
around the need to be compliant with regards to cookie consent management, data subject requests, and especially, digital accessibility.
yeah. No, that's great. How can people learn more about Climb?
So they can go to the website, www.climb.io. Lots of information is there.
May want
Click
to,
on,
Jonathan, you may want to spell Climb because
oh,
it's
oh
spelled a little
yeah.
differently.
So it's CLYM.io. From there, you can go to the Climb for Good page and get information. You can also reach out to me directly.
Yeah,
Happy to have those conversations because again, I want to be more than anything an educational source because I
yeah,
firmly believe that in this day and age, it's important to be able to be inclusive, and inclusivity a lot of times breeds more money,
yeah, yeah.
and
And talk
that
real
that's
quickly about that Climb for Good. Just make sure people understand what that
yeah.
is from a
Yeah,
nonprofit
so that
perspective.
yeah, so the Climb for Good program is specifically catered towards mission-driven organizations. So I've mentioned nonprofits, chambers, associations,
Okay.
educational institutions, to help create a simpler way to become more compliant. Through hands-on installation, through special pricing as well. Our goal is to just minimize any barriers that you
Yeah.
may encounter just so that you can make sure that your mission is being viewed by more people.
No, that's a good move. No pun intended. Well, good. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Obviously, if you found us, you know where to look on Spotify and Apple. I encourage you to check out previous episodes. have some other episodes around technology, around those sorts of things. I don't know that we have one specific to this, so this is a unique conversation. But love to have people follow us on LinkedIn, especially. I know Jonathan's on LinkedIn, so look for him there. And Johnathan, thank you for your time, and look forward to climbing the compliance mountain with you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's do it.